day and fight to dismantle a system that had never worked for us, and fight for the generations who hadn't yet been born. I grappled heavily with the trauma I felt when Trayvon Martin's young life was brutally taken from him, and in 2020, I felt that pain all over again with the deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. So I guess we can add a third word to describe my feelings in 2020. Triggered. What more can we do? How many more marches do we need to have to convince folks that Black lives matter? I felt triggered by all the racial unrest. I started to thank God that at this time in my life, I didn't have a traditional job in corporate America, because I don't think I could have shown up in a virtual environment and pretended like everything was business as usual. Nor could I work for a company that still refused to even state publicly that my life mattered. I woke up every morning and said a little prayer for my sisters who had struggled the night before and then had to deal with a sea of white faces on Zoom or Google Hangouts and pretend that this stuff didn't weigh them down like a ton of hefty garbage bags. If you were a white person during this hectic year, I am sure you also felt the upheaval, but you never had to worry about having the talk with your Black son, nor did you have to worry that your Black daughter might be gunned down in her apartment while hanging out with the love of her life. Black and brown folks don't get the benefit of turning off the television when we've had too much of a certain news story. We are still Black and brown when everyone else goes to bed. And then, on top of everything, in 2020, I had the privilege of writing my next book, Right Within, the one you are listening to right now. A book about how to heal from racialized work trauma. A book I was so excited to write for us, a book that I am still excited for you to read. But I have to be honest with you. The experience of writing this book was much different than the experience of writing my first book, The Memo, What Women of Color Need to Know to Secure a Seat at the Table. I struggled writing this book because I also was in a state of racialized trauma from the overlapping crises of 2020. What our country was going through, hell, what Black people were experiencing in 2020, started to flood my mind. And at the same time, I was overwhelmed working through all my experiences from previous years inside and outside the workplace. I couldn't stop thinking about Breonna Taylor, Sandra Bland, and Cynthia Hurd. Breonna Taylor, Sandra Bland, and Cynthia Hurd had a few things in common. They were all Black women, they all died to systemic racism, and they were all Black women in the workplace. It had been said that Breonna Taylor had sticky notes around her apartment with goals she planned to accomplish that year and in years to come. I don't know about you, but I have sticky notes all over my office with some of the same goals. I began to think about these women, their dreams, their goals, and even their fears. In those moments, I realized that racism doesn't just kill people, it kills careers too. Breonna and Cynthia each had a career, while Sandra was about to start a new one. And just to be clear, I'm not equating murder with the racial assaults that happen inside the workplace. What I am saying is workplace injustices hurt too. It is damaging to know that if you had been a different color, your life or career might have mattered more. I began to think about the many times racism tried to kill my career, and how heavy I felt during those times in my life. The times when I wasn't sure I can make it through the workday because a manager said something racially inappropriate, but I was the one who supposedly took it the wrong way. I mean, what other way am I supposed to take comments that start with, "you people"? After building my career for over 15 years, there were days when I wasn't sure how much longer I would be able to last being the only Black woman in the office. Being the only is more emotionally taxing than the dominant majority will ever know. And eventually, it leaves many of us not feeling right within. This led me to start to investigate the importance of being right within and learning how to pack a little lighter. Too often, workplace burdens will other you in some way, shape, or form. And while you can't control everything, you can center yourself and find ways to heal. Even in those moments when I felt like crying and throwing the covers over my head because I was so overwhelmed by the trauma all around me.